Welcome back to Two Gals and a Glass Half Full. On this episode, if you're interested in learning about baby-led weaning or what is plant-based diet and how we could use that for kiddos, this episode is for you. We're super excited for our guest today, but before we get started, Dr. Jess, what is in your glass?
I have my infused water this afternoon. So I've got, I do cucumber, ginger, mint, and lemon. And it's just been my favorite combination. So I just kind of keep doing that each week. And I put it in a pitcher and then I let it sit. And then throughout the course of the day, I have that pitcher of water and I just keep refilling my glass. And so it's achievable steps to finish this glass versus like a big bottle of water that I'm like, oh, I'm never going to finish it. Then I end up finishing a bunch of glasses. So anyways, that's what's in my glass. Dr. Bobby, what's in your glass?
I just finished having lunch, so I am on water, and there we go. If you can see, it's in my new crunchy tumbler. I love it. I love their skincare line, so water it is for me.
Awesome. And so today we have a special guest. Her name is Brittnee. And Brittnee, before you do some introductions about who you are and how much knowledge you have to share, what's in your glass?
So I actually just have water today. I cracked open a fresh bottle.
Uh-huh.
So it's the Mountain Valley spring water. When I'm on the go, this is usually what I have. Otherwise at home, I have like a water filter, and I love the combo that you mentioned because that's one of my favorite combinations too, with cucumber, lemon, and mint. I had it one time
Good.
on a trip, and ever since then I'm like, wow, it's got the perfect perfect combination there.
I
I'm
drink
gonna have
so
to
much
try
more
it.
water. Yeah, I drink
Yeah.
so much more because like I'm like, oh, that's good. I should have more. You know.
Yes, it's like a
So
different level of hydration, like
mhm,
refreshingness.
absolutely. So Brittany, tell us a little bit about you.
Yes. So I am a registered dietitian nutritionist, and I'm also a holistic health coach. And more recently, I got certified as a food for life cooking instructor. So all of that really just makes me feel like one wholesome bundle of what I can offer to people, because I know, so many aspects of our life is, it's not just about what's on the plate, but all the other things as well. So that's my background, mostly professionally. And I also help new parents start solids with baby-led weaning. So I'm a part of a international starting solids network, and that just helps me stay up to date on all the new trends and keep a network just to refer to for all kinds of things. Because as we know, with science and nutrition and things and babies, things are always changing. So it's nice to have community to go through.
Mhm.
So I specifically specialize in plant-based, vegetarian, vegan in that world, but baby-led weaning is more of a specific niche in the starting solids world. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, so that's my main categories.
That's awesome. We love like the holistic and all that nutrition. And Dr. Jess and I have been really like reading up on I don't know if you've heard of the blue zones.
Yes.
Yeah, so we've been reading up on the blue zones and just we love all the information. So we're really excited to hear what you have to say. To get started, can you explain what is baby-led weaning?
Yes. So I know with the recent surge in social media, it gets a little blurry. But there is an official definition from the original creator of the term, Jill Rapley, which I've actually trained under her. So it's really just about baby feeding themselves. So, they're in charge of how much and how often, how little, how much, as far as not just quantity, but like the different types of foods that you might serve. So it's about giving the baby the autonomy to feed themselves, because we learned that they actually do know how to. They just need the practice. And so the concept is based on serving appropriate foods from what the family is already eating. So a lot of times people get worried because of choking and gagging and different things. But when you remember the concept of like, well, what were people doing back then before pureed foods came in little cute cans and glasses? They were eating what the family was eating, but served appropriately. So you want it to be soft enough, no choking hazard type of foods that are too hard or sticky or an inappropriate size. um, so it really just gives babies that autonomy, and it helps them learn all types of different skills throughout, that first year of life. And it really benefits them and creates a healthy relationship with food from the beginning. And just because I know a lot of people think it's like you can't serve purees, but as we know as adults, we eat mashed potatoes and soup and all those different textures. So it's not taking away from any type of pureed foods. It's just saying you don't have to only serve that, and you're not the one gauging basically how much, how often, if they're hungry or not, kind of a thing, by being the one directing the food into their mouth. So giving the control back to babies is really the whole baby-led part of baby-led weaning.
I find, my daughter is 8 months now, and, I wanted to kind of cook her own food, and I have a lot of helpers. My mom helps and her dad and everyone. So I don't always have control over what she eats. And so they have introduced like the Gerber, like trying to get them to use the natural organic ones. But it's funny, like they'll have that, and when she sees our food, she like stops eating that and she only wants what we have, and so it's amazing
Yes.
how, and she very quickly, I mean, I think she was 6 months old and was picking up stuff that, the label says it's for 8 months or 12 months, or she even has something that says 2 years, but she sits there and eats it and is able to handle it just fine, so.
Yeah. And you get those cues when they're picking up toys and anything else within reach. It's all just, for them, it's the same skills. So
That one, I
it's
think
good you followed
empowering
her
kids.
cues.
Yeah, exactly. But like empowering them to think a little bit for themselves is kind of, it just leads into kind of how you parent as well. So like
Yes.
having your child let you know what they want and what they need, and for you to hear it is only going to help as they get older, right? Like I
Absolutely.
just, my 6.5-year-old, like we go to Trader Joe's, he pushes his own cart. He makes his own choice about, what vegetables he wants to eat that week, what fruits he wants to eat that week, what are we going to be putting in your lunchbox this week, things like that. And so, and then he pushes his cart, and we don't do like the pre-cut carrots and stuff like that. We buy carrot sticks and we peel them because carrots
Yes.
come from the ground, and it needs to look like a carrot for eating carrots. And so he'll even like correct the people in the store because they're like, "Oh, are you looking for these?" He's like, no, thank you. I want the real carrots. I'm like, oh no,
That's
I
too
need to be
cute.
careful about how we say that.
Yes. I love
But
it.
that's like, so then when it comes to food time and he's making his choice of like tonight, I want carrots or broccoli or whatever, peppers, whatever he wants to feel like is his pair or what we're gonna be packing for the next day. There's no fighting about it. It's
Yeah.
like this is, you're being empowered to make these choices for what you want to put in your body. How hungry are you? As long as we pair with these types of foods, then, I mean, there's boundaries, right? We can't
Yeah,
just put
yeah.
only carbs in our body, right? So we can't just have toast for dinner. And why? But I think like starting at the level of the baby, it gives that relationship, like you said, with food, it gets it off to the right start. So, which is great.
Yes, absolutely.
So when it comes to like, parents choosing like baby-led weaning, right? How are parents finding out about this? Like what kind of research are they doing outside of social media? Is that like mainly where it's coming from, or like where else do you think they're are learning about this?
Yes. So I think in like more recent years, it's definitely coming from social media, or a lot of mom groups. And that can be have its positives and its negatives, because a lot of people assign strict rules that just happen to come into the world and society that don't actually need to be applied. And then people go looking from there. And I think because it's so new, people are talking to their pediatricians and they're just like, okay, just start solids, or, you can give them food or whatever it is. But then they're like, okay, but how? Or like, what am I allowed? They have so many more questions. And so they just go to the internet, and whatever's out there seems to be what they come across. So it's less people finding like health professionals that can kind of guide them in a more specific direction if they need it, especially for what applies to their family or their specific scenario. So that's what I have found, which is why I love what I do, because I'm like also trying to bring awareness that like there are health professionals who promote this, and you can do it in a safe and healthy way, and you're not doing anything wrong. And then on the other side, you have people who are like, oh, I was already feeding my child that way. I just didn't know it had a name. Or they're like, I didn't come up, I wasn't upfront about it. Because sometimes people are like, oh, should you be doing that? Like, that looks dangerous, those kinds of things. So you also find people feel a little bit of shame that they were already feeding their kid that way, maybe their second kid or their third kid. So those are the main different ways that I see people coming into it.
I know from when I read about it on social media, because to be honest, I wasn't exactly sure what it is, but I've seen a lot about it. And from an outsider perspective, not knowing until you kind of give a better description, it seemed like it was just giving your baby whole foods. That's like the only thing it was, don't give them puree, don't give them this, whole foods. And so to hear a little bit more of the backstory of like letting them choose and giving them autonomy within reason, but autonomy that a baby should have, it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. And that's why it's like, it gets so tricky, because social media and trying to get a message out there, it gets a little oversimplified. Like, yes, you are giving them whole foods, but there's a little bit more to it, like you said. And it really just, it opens up a world of possibilities for families, I think, as well, when you start to get exposed to the other sides of other benefits of it. So
Right. Yeah. So as far as so when we think of whole foods, right? What are like some of the benefits of doing plant-based nutrition with babies and toddlers?
yes. So I kind of like to first say it's the same benefits for adults or older adults, anybody at any age. It really is. But starting at the younger age is even more special, because we know these chronic diseases that a lot of people are dealing with in the Western world, like cancer, diabetes, heart disease, they actually start when we're younger. And so getting that healthy relationship, healthy habits as best as you can, early as possible, has such a benefit on their health in the long term. And it even starts when parents are conceiving, during pregnancy, like really it's all adds up. So starting with their first foods is just amazing, because of course they're not necessarily going to always eat what you are offering in the plant world per se, but it still gives them a benefit of lower rates of, asthma, allergies, constipation, as I mentioned, obesity, type 2 diabetes, those major chronic health problems. Even they'll have lower rates of upper respiratory infections, headaches, migraines. So even when we get into teenagehood, acne. And this is just what, they're seeing. These teenagers, these children that have this different type of introduction to food, they are less likely to have these other, what seem normal or common experiences that, we're all just kind of dealing with one way or another. Yeah, also it affects mental health and just overall lifetime cancer risk and just chronic diseases. So it's pretty awesome, because, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to raise your kid 100% vegan. It doesn't have to be anything more than just including more variety and just stressing the importance and showing healthy habits from the start. So
Dr. Jess and I are firm believers in the 80-20. 80% of the time you're, following that diet, you're following that lifestyle you want. And then 20% of the time you're enjoying the pizza, you're having the ice cream, you're doing those things that are considered maybe not healthy, but you're still enjoying. It's not restricting yourself from those enjoyments.
yeah, and that's why I love about just the baby-led weaning is that you're bringing them into your family's culture, your eating habits, and just those traditions that, because when we're eating around the table, there's joy, there's conversation, there's so many other things going on besides the food that you're eating. So exactly, you have to leave the joy and the real life to food and eating. So definitely.
Well, and you're just, I think, setting them up for success with how do we consider our bodies, right? And like what you put in your body or what you put on your body or any of that needs to be like an active choice, not just this like passive thought that comes by and you grab whatever is the easiest, cheapest alternative, right? Because I think oftentimes we forget that like there's so much messaging that we are giving to children as parents of like, oh, here, you're hungry, just grab this. And so, and whether that might be some sort of probably very highly processed in a package wrapper. Okay. And sometimes it is what it is. You're traveling, it's, it's hard. But it's teaching them, oh, like if I feel hungry, like I just go to whatever is the fastest and easiest, instead of
Yes.
thinking, what benefit is this giving me? Like, what is this doing for my body? So that way, when I feel hungry, I'm feeding what I need to feed. Like if you feel like you need sugar, like your glucose levels are low, like sometimes that happens, right? You've been running and playing outside and sweating, and it's like in the afternoon, it's like, Mama, I really want a pop. And we do popsicles, right? We do an all fruit popsicle, right? But like they're looking for that glucose release versus, Mama, I'm hungry. Like
Yeah.
I'm hungry. Like, so finding the difference between that, like if you can have a child recognize that, do you know how pivotal that is for the rest of their life? I mean, it's
Exactly.
hugely important. And
Yeah.
in the moment, you're like, yeah, you know where the popsicles are. Go grab one. Make sure you get one for your brother. Offer him one. He's gonna have, social skills too, emotional intelligence. But like it's, every time I recognize that and I see that happen, I'm like, yes, like he's getting it. Like I
Yeah.
don't need a snack, I need a popsicle. And it's like that time of day,
Yeah.
you're like, man, he has been out here sweating for a couple of hours. Of course he wants a popsicle. Can you grab me one too?
Yes. Like you said, it's just amazing to see kids tuning into what their body is asking for and then listening to it and knowing how to, make one of the best choices for themselves because we don't know,
Mhm.
they know better than us and we know better than other people about our own, hunger
Mhm.
levels and things. So,
Well, I find, with my 8 month, all of a sudden I want her eating, actual fresh fruits and not having packaged food. And yes, we use it when we're on the go, but um, so it makes me start to question what I'm putting in my mouth because whatever I put in my mouth, she's like grabbing for, and it's like the one thing I fight with, and maybe one day I'll get rid of it. Maybe I won't. Maybe it'll be the one thing that stays with me is soda. I love my one soda a day, but like I don't ever want her to have it until she's older. But it's like,
mhm.
wait a second, like if it's so bad for you, or I so much don't want her to have it, why am I having it? And meals at dinner, like it's so easy to grab, like when you walk in, like Cheetos, this, that, especially when your parents have it all around.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, oh, wait. So for lunch today, I was like, no, like I want her to have vegetables. So I need to eat vegetables. So it's definitely also challenging me in the way that I eat and the way I think about food. Because one, if I don't want her having it, why am I eating it? And
Mhm.
two, if I don't want her having it, then I can't show her I'm eating it. Like I need to show her what I want her to eat.
Mhm.
Yes, yes. And this is something that people don't realize until they become parents. It's like, oh, wait, now this is making me think about my relationship with food. And some people, they've never addressed the different things, their own relationship with food too much. So it can be overwhelming because of that. Like you said, you're constantly evaluating your own relationship with food and trying to instill the best in your child. So it can be a good thing, all on how you handle it, of course.
Yes. Yes.
Well, and I think when you're and trying to improve your own diet and your choices, it's really not more work because what you're eating is what you're feeding them. So it's like,
Mhm.
it's actually, I found it to be easier because now I'm not having to make two separate meals. I'm making one
Yes.
meal, and then I might put more spice on mine and my husband's, or, like I might doctor it a little bit more so that it's not like, this is my mouth is on fire, like, um, so, I mean, like, don't even think, like, I mean, just a little bit of spice, and it's like, whoa.
Yes.
Those taste buds are so like, ah. But I do think that's when you realize it that way, you're like, it actually is making my life easier, in the long run,
Exactly.
in the
Yeah.
moment and in the long run, it's actually easier. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
like,
Definitely. And that's how I think of it too. For people who have been on a journey, a health journey or whatever it is for years prior, it is easier and you kind of just get to flow into it. But also, thinking, yeah, okay, so now we don't have to make two separate meals and we get to eat at the same time. I don't have to try to eat real quick while my husband is feeding the baby and then his food's getting cold. And it's like this whole juggling thing.
mhm.
And then even like you were saying, but yet the baby is seeing that I'm eating something different. So now she does it, like it can be a whole thing. So it really does simplify things and make it easier using this
Yes.
kind of approach.
I think it makes the
So,
table feel more even, as
Yeah.
far as
yeah.
like, and we're not perfect at this, we're not, but I just want any kid in our house, ours or a kid that's visiting, to feel respected, right?
Mhm.
I want it to feel like what they have to say matters and that we hear that. I mean, we still need to guide them, but I just feel like sometimes it's almost disrespectful when you like dumb things down too much, right? Like you're
Yeah.
only going to get this while we get this complex meal that looks very appetizing and complete. You're going to get this like very like chick 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 chick, like, I don't know, I just, no wonder they're trying to eat off your plate, right? Because like
I
you're just
think
like, you got a whole meal over there, you're giving me like the scraps, like
I
Yeah.
think a great example of what you're saying, Dr. Jazz, is if you look at a menu at a restaurant, look at the
Oh,
adult
yes.
side and then the kids side of things. And I think you can clearly see there's no like miniature portion of like this amazing bowl that's so good with beans and all this. It's like piece of pizza, chicken nuggets, mac and cheese.
hmm
Yeah,
absolutely,
And if you're
exactly. And
lucky, there's something healthy.
not normally,
yeah,
Right. That's why
there
I said like
really
if you're
isn't. It's
lucky.
normally fried or like the mac and cheese. But I mean, the like what is that really giving, like what is that giving you, um I don't know.
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
it's it's kind of sad to see because then you're left with two options. They have to eat, they're going to be eating from your plate, number one. Number two, their meal isn't really a meal because it's one item, like
Mhm.
the way they label it. And then you have okay, well, they want the adult meal, but you guys don't have a smaller version of that. So now I have to, order this huge extra plate
Mhm.
Mhm.
that they're
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
not going to eat the whole thing of. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's crazy seeing that with restaurants, and sad because they don't give kids the benefit of the doubt that they want regular foods too, really.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at a plant-based diet, I think one of the biggest questions people have is how are you getting your iron? Because we think of iron from meat and red meat. And if you're doing a plant-based or a vegetarian diet, you're not eating meat. So what are some of the best sources that both adults and children can get that from?
Yeah, so the thing with starting solids, why iron comes up is because of the way the body develops, first of all. So depending on how the birth and pregnancy went is kind of gauges how much iron stores a baby will have. So in general, babies will have enough iron stores until about 6 months. That's when it starts to drop, which is why we say, okay, now's a good time to start introducing solid foods and ideally focusing on an iron-rich food at each meal. And so what happens is, yeah, you kind of just get one-sided one-sided information that it has to be meat or whatever. And the thing is, it's less about just the source, but also, like I said, the pairing of that with a vitamin C rich food. So, and the other thing that people stress about is like, well, they're not really eating much of it. Like, how do I know? And the thing is, the iron stores don't just drop off, 100%. Now it's at 0% at 6 months. Like I said, it's different for every child. But it's a slow progression. So your child is now at 8 months. So it's like, ideally, if they started about 2 months ago, like they're progressing now. They're actually getting food into their mouth and actually taking pieces of it and swallowing it and getting more of it that way. And so it's cool to see that progression goes with how the body develops. The skill of learning how to eat goes along with the now opposite stores, and now they need to take in from actual foods. So I just like to note that because that's when, people get worried, and then they're like, oh no, well, they're not eating this thing, or they're not eating enough of these foods, when it's okay. It's okay. We can trust that the body is doing what it needs to do. So the other thing is that some people think of iron-rich foods as like the infant cereals. And the problem with that is cereal itself is not an iron-rich food, but they're adding nutrients to it. So it's kind of silly to say that that's like a good go-to because it's a low iron food. They're just adding iron to it. So that's another reason why focusing on the whole foods, or ideally regular foods, is more beneficial in the long run, because they're actually iron-rich foods and they're learning to enjoy them.
Right. So are there any foods that you would like, let's say, like, hey, we really want to like make sure like some of these are in the arsenal of foods that are offered in the beginning, just to kind of focus it a little bit? Or is it almost like any whole food is fine?
Yeah, so as I was saying, ideally you do want to focus on, in the beginning, offering an iron-rich food first and like getting those into their system. So that could be anything from extra firm tofu or any sort of calcium set tofu, really. Hemp seeds. I'm not sure if you're familiar with tahini, which is just ground up sesame seeds. So focusing on those foods in the beginning is the best option, because you're not going to be offering them a whole meal at first. It's really going to be like a piece or two of food. So that's why it's important to make sure it is an iron-rich food, because that's really all they're getting, and the rest of their nutrients are still coming from breast milk or formula, depending on what the parent is doing, or both. So definitely focusing on the iron-rich foods, whether that's plant-based or not, is most beneficial. And then secondary from there, like I was saying, is to follow that up with vitamin C rich foods. So, broccoli, bell peppers, a squeeze of lemon juice. That's super versatile to go with anything that you're offering. Strawberries and things like that.
Oh, she loves the strawberries, little one, my little one. So that's good. Good to know.
Yes. Yeah. So I don't know if I made it clear, but yeah, offering the vitamin C rich food with the iron rich food increases the absorption of iron. So like I said, that's whether plant-based or not, it's a great combination of foods. And a lot of times we're naturally doing that in meals and we just kind of don't realize it. But sometimes you need that like emphasis that broken down, like, okay, so this and this is a great,
Right.
great combination.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for anybody that isn't super sure about tahini, like that's what's in hummus, right? Like it's
Yes,
truly a
yes.
tahini. And that's something that I found really easy when the kids were little because it's super fun because like you can like dip into hummus, which is fun. You get it on your hands and it's no big deal. And it's very easy to make. So it doesn't have to be expensive. You don't have to, or you can buy it pre-made. So which is kind of fun. We did a lot of hummus. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I think so much of this was like really, really awesome information and so helpful. I didn't know a ton about like, how those iron levels drop and, things like that through those first 6 months. It was just like, hey, it's 6 months, it's time. So I've always considered it to be more of like an oral motor issue with like being able to like coordinate the swallow. But it is helpful to really be pretty strategic about that timeline with iron specifically. And so that's a very like action item, tangible step that's like, hey, here's why, and here's a step you can take, which I love. Like that's clear. Like
yes.
instead of like you should, because of this X period of time, right? So I love it. Brittnee, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to tag all your information in the episode description. So her website
Awesome.
and her Instagram handle. And that way, anybody that wants to, find Brittnee and potentially work with her, then we'll try and make it as easy as possible. And we really love that you were willing to come on and share all of this valuable information. And hopefully people find it helpful. So stay tuned for everything that we've got coming up and make sure to like and follow us if this is stuff you like, and share it with a friend if you think your friend could find it be helpful as well. Bye.
Yes. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the episode today. If you would like to learn more about how Two Gals can support you, then join our Two Gals Insiders membership, which can be found at www.2-gals.com. Also, don't forget, follow us on social media. We're on Facebook as well as Instagram. Okay, everybody. Bye. Enjoy your week.